Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Welcome to the another workshop conducted by MindTribe. I am Aparna Gavande, and I work as a psychologist at MindTribe. We have Leanne here, a psychologist at MindTribe, who will be presenting the workshop on breakup recovery. I hope we have an interactive session today. Uh, Before we begin, there are few rules that we need to follow. Keep your cameras and mic off. If you have any doubts, open your mic or speak up, or you can type it in the chat box. Kindly maintain the decorum. Also, the meeting is going to be recorded. So, if you don't want your voice to be recorded, you can type it in the chat box. And if you don't wish to be the part of it, you can drop off. Okay, thank you. I will hand it over to Leanne now.
Thank you, Aparna. Um, Hi, everyone. I am Leanne Fernandez. I am a psychologist with a deep commitment to supporting individuals through life's tough transitions. Within my practice, I help my clients navigate emotional challenges like anxiety, depression, relationship issues, including the aftermath of breakups. In this workshop and in my sessions as well, my goal is to work with you. So, offering tools, strategies to help you heal, regain your sense of self, and move forward with clarity and confidence. Breakups can be incredibly hard, but together, I hope today we can turn this painful chapter into an opportunity for growth and for renewal. All right. So, with that introduction, let us start off today's workshop. All right. So, let's talk about what is a breakup, right? Something we all know. It is a relationship that comes to an end, right? Generally, romantic relationships definitions are changing now. Sometimes a situationship, sometimes things without a label when it ends as well. That can also feel like a very heavy breakup, right? So, to start off with a question for all of you, have you ever been through a breakup? You can give me a thumbs up if yes, thumbs down if no. All right. Okay. So, lots of thumbs up I'm seeing here. All right. So, thank you for sharing all of that. All right. So, another question for you guys. How long has it been since your breakup? Just yesterday, a month ago, 3 years ago? How long has it been? You can type it in the chat box. I would love to hear your answer. All right, I'm seeing a lot of responses here. 6 months, 14, 1 month, 6 months, 1.5, 8 years, a week ago, 2 months ago, 1 year, 1 month, 10 months, being single since 8 years. All right. So, as you can see, everybody's healing journeys can take, different timelines basically, right? There is a mix of you over here today, all of you who have been going through this experience for quite a while, some of you really fresh as well. So I hope to hear insights from all of you today, understanding how this experience has been for all of you, right? So now with that in mind, I want to ask, what are some of the changes that you've seen in yourself, or what are the struggles that you've been experiencing ever since you've had your breakup? You can type in the chat box if you're comfortable. You can also raise your hand and answer if you like. Anxiety, stress, all right. You can also unmute and talk, all right. That's also fine. Continued chest pain, depression, addiction, stress, depression, anxiety, trust issues, hopelessness, sadness, self-loathing, sleep disturbances. It took long to get in that disbelief, feeling worthless, multiple panic attacks, anxiety, difficulty trusting others, depression, sadness, anxiety, trust issues, breakdowns, anxiety, anger issues. All right. Completely lost interest in dating, caring about looks, grooming, lived for self, didn't want to impress anyone, craving of rebirth. All right. All right. So all of you have had your own subjective experiences, right? Yet I can see a lot of common things that all of you share as well, right? One of the major reasons I'm asking this question as well is so that you see that you are not alone in your experience, right? Even though right now this experience might feel very, very heavy, it might feel like you're going through it alone. This is something that a lot of us have been through, right? And the things that you guys have shared in the chat box, they all seem incredibly difficult to go through, right? And some of you have been experiencing it for a long time as well. So to deal with that every single second, every day, I can only imagine how painful that must be to, carry along, right? So, would anybody like to unmute and share an experience with the others along with the things that we've spoken about in the chat box? You can raise your hand and then you can go ahead and answer as well. Yes, Jeffrina, go ahead.
Hi ma'am, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. Go ahead.
Ma'am, after breakup, I have been going through a lot of issues like overthinking, stress, anxiety, which is a major part of me being lonely and feeling alone. So it was very
Mm,
difficult, and it's very difficult to cope up with those stressful
mm,
situations. I have also been
mm,
taking therapy and all to cope up with those situations. So yeah, so this is my experience of this.
mm, mm. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. That definitely sounds difficult to deal with, right? And I do see that you have started taking steps to cope with it as well, right? And I'm so glad you're here today. I hope this workshop is something that is fruitful for you. All right. Sneha, go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. Hello, everyone.
Mm,
I'm Sneha Sharastar. Actually, I wasn't in a healthy relationship. It was a toxic
mm,
relationship. He literally tortured me mentally and physically. And though I decided to to have a breakup, but it's like I cannot move on. I cannot feel like I will move on or not. I have developed
mm,
anxiety issues. I cry.
mm,
I cry over silly things, and I feel like things are not going good.
mm,
It's the sadness everywhere.
mm. All right.
That's what I
Uh,
experienced.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Sneha. This feeling of being stuck, right? Not going ahead, the pain that
Yes,
comes
ma'am.
along with all, right? Um, that is also something that a lot of us do experience, right? And especially as you mentioned, since this was a relationship that was not very healthy, it can take a much longer to deal with this pain as well, right? Yes, Kapil, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, I had a breakup long time back, and it was a
Mm,
mutually. So, what I felt that initially I was very cool about it. That it's
mm,
fine that I'll manage, and obviously, कुछ भी relationship होता है. Sometimes there is a time which when it ends somewhere.
mm, mm,
So, but after that decision that okay, let's mutually depart. So I think I started getting anxiety attacks,
mm,
and I started feeling depressed.
mm,
I was losing my confidence,
mm.
and I was all the time I was thinking about my partner, trying to message her, trying to call her. She was there to support me also, but I don't know if she was also going through the same things.
Mm,
But yeah, what I felt that you get used to certain kind of treatment or a feeling throughout the day, on and on, for a
Hmm.
year, 2 years, 3 years, as long as your relationship is on. And when
Hmm.
suddenly that feeling goes off, and
Hmm.
आपका जो डिपेंडेंसी एक क्रिएट हो जाता है, एक आपका इमोशनल सपोर्ट क्रिएट हो जाता है, और
Hmm.
एक आई एम टेलिंग अबाउट फ्रॉम अ गाय साइड.
Hmm. Hmm.
सो आपको एक कॉन्फिडेंस भी रहता है दैट कहीं भी जाना वाना, यू ऑलवेज हैव अ पार्टनर, यू कैन लेट्स गो फॉर अ मूवी, लेट्स गो टू अ पार्टी, एंड देयर
Hmm.
इज अ सोशल गैदरिंग, माय फ्रेंड्स आर कमिंग, यू आल्सो जॉइन. सो वो सब चीज़ें एकदम से गायब हो जाती हैं. एंड
Hmm.
वो सुबह उठ के मैसेज करना, देखना, कुछ भी बात है, सारे हर टाइम कॉल करना, बात करना, और फिर आप वो हैप्पीनेस मिल नहीं पाती है आपको. तो
Right.
और फिर आई थिंक वो आपको मतलब दैट बिकम्स एन इशू, एंड इट टेक्स लॉट ऑफ टाइम टू हील विद दैट. बिकॉज आप कुछ भी देखते हो तो आपको वो ही दिमाग में कहीं ना कहीं बैक ऑफ द माइंड चलता रहता है. सेकेंडली
Right.
मैम, मैं
Right.
एक चीज आई वुड
Uh,
लाइक टू आस्क यू दैट लड़के बोलते हैं, इट्स व्हाट आई फील दैट इट्स इजी फॉर अ गर्ल टू गेट ओवर विद अ ब्रेकअप. लड़कियां बोलती हैं इट्स इजी फॉर अ गाय टू गेट ओवर विद अ ब्रेकअप. सो व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज द सिचुएशन? बिकॉज लड़कों को ऐसा लगता है कि बिकॉज इन इंडिया गर्ल्स ऑलवेज हैव ऑप्शंस, so they might get into another relationship very fast than a boy.
hmm.
So is that helps
Right.
them to overcome the relationship setback fast, or it's same for both of them, depends on a person to person.
Right. Right. Okay. So, first of all, Kapil, thank you for bringing this perspective to our workshop today, right?
Hmm.
Like you mentioned, right? Being in that relationship, it becomes that sort of habit that you always want to return to, right? And then when it's gone, it becomes very difficult to cope with it. In
Yes.
fact, studies have shown that going through a breakup triggers very similar reactions in our brain, like if somebody would have an addiction and they stop taking the substance, right? If they were drinking and they stopped drinking, very similar reactions happen after a breakup as well, because you're so used to that person, right? So it is
Right.
completely understandable the things that you went through. As for the girls versus guys question about how they move on, right? I think this would be sort of a stereotype, because even when we look at research, right, there is no set way that it is easier for girls to move on versus guys, right? Of course, some of the factors do come in where it is maybe more acceptable for girls to speak out loud about the emotional pain that comes in with a breakup, right? So that might make it easier to start venting, the venting process, right? If you have a good social support system, that is also something that might help you. But I would not go on to make the claim that it is easier for one gender versus the other, because it is a very, very individual experience that each of us have, right?
Okay. Right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that question. All right. So, thank you all for sharing the struggles that you've been through as well. Let's discuss, including the ones that you already mentioned, some of the common struggles that people generally face, right? So, feeling low, feeling anxious, right? A lot of you have said this as well, right? This is very common after a breakup. Constantly thinking about your ex, what are they doing, what is happening in their life right now, why did they do this, why did they do it this way, right? A lot of thoughts about them. Disturbed sleep as well. Low self esteem comes up quite a bit. Was it my fault? Should I have done something differently? Maybe I'm not made for a relationship. Maybe I'll never be in a relationship again, right? Even thoughts about your physical appearance sometimes. Maybe I'm not uh, attractive enough to be in a relationship. Or just in general, just worrying about, am I good enough to be in this situation at all, right? Um, if you were in an unhealthy relationship where your partner constantly made jabs at your abilities, right, that might also affect your self esteem. You also talk about emotional outbursts, right? This might come up through sadness, where you suddenly start crying. And to others, it might seem like this is for no reason, this is for a silly reason, right? But that all that pain has accumulated, and then it comes out in crying outbursts, or sometimes even anger outbursts, right? Someone does something and you get irritated very easily, right? So these are some examples of common struggles. Some others that we talk about are a constant temptation to contact your ex, right? Maybe I'll go stalk them. Maybe I'll go see their last scene on WhatsApp. Maybe I'll create a fake account and go see what they're doing, right? Just reaching out to them. If they've blocked me on WhatsApp, I'll send them an SMS, right? So this constant temptation is also something that comes up. And emotional dependence is also something that we see, right? Because you've been with your partner for that long, you might have become dependent on them to manage your emotions, right? Maybe they were someone that you felt comfortable sharing your emotions with, and now that they are not there to support you, you don't know what to do with all those emotions. So very often, maybe you might end up suppressing those emotions, just bottling all of it up, right? um, Feelings of rejection, betrayal, right? You might think that if I get into a relationship again, I will get rejected again. Or if your partner has cheated on you, right? The sense of betrayal or not being able to trust anybody again, as a lot of you have mentioned as well, right? This is also something that happens. An unrealistic hope that maybe things will patch up, right? Maybe both of us will change and maybe the relationship will flourish again, right? Having that unrealistic hope is also something that a lot of us experience. And in addition, impulsive or escapist coping, right? So doing things without putting much thought into it, or doing things to avoid feeling all of the pain that comes with a breakup, right? For example, you might get into a rebound relationship, right? You might think that, okay, I'm not going to think about this relationship, I'm going to just get into a physical relationship to think to get over all of this. Or you might jump into a new relationship very often. You might start binging, whether it's on food, maybe on TV shows, right? Another impulsive thing that happens is maybe cutting off your hair, coloring it, just transforming your whole entire look, right? This is also something that happens very often. Um, got into overworking, right? Yes, that is also a common example, right? Just to escape all of those feelings, you might put yourself into overworking yourself as well. Thank you for that, right? So these are some of the common struggles that come up post breakup. Okay. Another thing that is something that is incredibly common, but we might not always recognize it, is grief, right? Usually, when we think of grief, it is usually associated with death, right? But that is not necessarily true, right? Grief is just a response to loss, right? So it could be a loss of someone or something, right? Your bond and your affection that was formed over there, that is not there in your life any longer. So you might feel grief as well. Okay. So do you think that grief is something that you have experienced after your breakup? You can give me a thumbs up if yes. Right. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about grief in a bit more depth. Okay. So generally, when we talk about grief, there are 5 stages. Okay. And let's go through all of these and see what they mean. Okay. At the very initial stage, you might feel denial, right? So it can be really challenging to accept this reality of the breakup. So logically, you might understand that, okay, it's over, but you don't want to believe it, right? There's still that hope that this can't be real, we are meant to be together, and they'll realize it and they'll come back any moment now, right? So that denial is still there. Then after that, we move on to anger, right? This anger might be towards your ex. If there was a third person involved who caused the breakup, it might be towards them. It might be towards the situation, right? Maybe it was just circumstance that didn't let your relationship flourish. You can even be angry at yourself, right? You might have thoughts like, how could they do this to me after everything we went through, right? I've shared so much with them. How could they do this? Or how could that other person do this? Or if it's a situation that you're angry at, um, why did it have to be this way? Right? So a lot of anger also does come up when we talk about grief. Right? Next is something that we call bargaining. Right? So bargaining is basically something that we've all done, right, in the markets when we go to. But when it comes to grief, we talk about bargaining in the sense that it's a back and forth process of maybe negotiating, right? Or reviving what is already over, right? So maybe if I change, they'll reconsider and they'll come back, right? You might pray to God that please let this happen and I'll fast for these many days, right? You might try convincing your ex that, hey, I'll change and come back, and maybe we could do this differently, and we can come back together. It might also be in the form of making threats, right? And this is something that is very unhealthy, right? If you don't come back to me, then I'll go and harm myself. Or if you don't come back, then I'll go and um tell people your secrets, things like that, right? So bargaining can come up in a lot of different ways. Okay. Then when we talk about depression, right, this is one phase where you feel a lot of hopelessness, you feel low mood, and you feel that inability to even enjoy your day-to-day life, right? Things that you used to have an interest in, you don't no longer find interesting at all. You just don't care about anything. Some of you had shared in the chat earlier as well that you had lost interest in grooming yourself, dressing up, or even looking into dating again, right? So you might have thoughts like, I can't imagine my life without them, and nothing feels right anymore, right? So this is generally what happens when it comes to depression. And finally, what is generally considered the last stage of grief is acceptance, right? So the person begins to face the reality of the situation. You might think something that, okay, it's over and it is time for me to heal and move forward, right? And this is not to say that all of your difficult and strong emotions have gone away, right? These emotions are still there, but you just begin to accept it. Okay. And as we talk about these stages, right, generally people think that the one stage comes after the other, right? But it is not necessarily true, right? With support, you can move through these stages, but sometimes something might happen and you might go back to a previous stage, right? So it's not to say that all the progress that you've done has gone or anything of that sort. All right. So these are the stages of grief.
Can you explain bargain again? Bargaining.
Right. Okay. So bargaining is basically trying to negotiate, reaching a compromise, right? Ki I'll do this, and will you come back? If so, for example, if your partner was saying something like, "You don't spend enough time with me," right, and that is why they broke up. So you might say something like, "I promise I'll spend more time with you. I'll do this. I'll do that. Please come back," right? You might start praying that I'll make this sacrifice, and God, please make this right. Okay, so that is what bargaining. All right. So stages of grief. Okay, this is what we have covered. And again, this is not necessary that you have to go through these in order, right? Anything can happen in any order, and sometimes you go back to the stages that you've previously covered as well. All right. So, of all these stages, what is a stage that you think you want to be at? You type in the chat box, unmute yourself. What is a stage that you would want to be at of all these stages? Acceptance. Yes, Deep, go ahead.
Of course, I would like to be in acceptance stage, but um, I feel I'm still in depression stage.
Hmm.
I mean, I have consciously decided not to date anyone,
Hmm.
um, and to stay single for the rest of my life because the pain is just not worth it. And I'm single since 8 years, and I have no problems. But yeah, I do sometimes get irritated or depressed
Hmm.
when I see other people getting engaged, and I just unfollow them
Hmm.
uh, because I don't want any bad memories, and I don't want to feel like a loser, and I don't want to feel lonely. It
Hmm.
affects me, uh, uh, but at the same time, I don't know. I think maybe I have already accepted,
Hmm.
but but it still affects me. The loneliness and things affects me.
Right, right, right. Thank you for sharing that. Right. I do understand that sometimes time has passed and you just don't want to get into that pain all over again because it was so incredibly difficult the first time. That understandable, right? Why would you want to put yourself through that again? But at the same time, there is this realization that there are things that I would like to experience for myself that I might be, missing out on, and any reminders of that become annoying to deal with, right? So I do understand where you're coming from. So a lot of you have said acceptance in the chat box. Um, some of you want to be in bargaining, anger because you never got to let it out, right? Right. Okay, all right. So thank you for sharing that. So as we will be discussing some ways of venting out and also just letting that emotional pain out, right? Along with that, as there is a huge focus on acceptance, right? This is what we generally want to be at. Let's talk about that in a bit more depth. All right. So let's talk about what is acceptance, right? So take this scenario that it is raining outside, okay, and you don't necessarily enjoy the rain, or you have to go somewhere, right? So when it's raining, if somebody is not in the acceptance stage yet, they might say things like, "I don't like the rain. I wish it wasn't raining, and my day would be so much better if it wasn't raining. My day is ruined. Every day is like this. It's always like this. Why does it always rain when all I want it is for it to be sunny?" Right? So this is what someone who hasn't accepted it might look like. Versus someone who is adept at acceptance would say something like, "It's raining. Yep, that's it." Right? So this is what acceptance is. Even though there are all of these feelings, you just accept that this is the situation right now and this is how it is. Right? Now, a lot of you might be thinking that if it was this easy to do, wouldn't I just do it already? Right? So, let's talk about that a bit more, right? What are the things that, hold us back from accepting, or just what makes letting go that difficult, right? So, let's talk about that a bit, right? Um, what are some obstacles that might come up when we talk about letting go? So, first is a fear of loneliness or being alone forever, right? If you are someone who is still holding on to reminders of your ex, or you don't want to, cut contact with them yet, or you don't want to accept that the relationship is over, it might be coming up from this fear that if I let this person go, then I'm going to be all by myself, or I'm never going to find another partner again, right? So that is something that might be causing that fear of abandonment as well. So, very similar to the first point, if you have patterns in the past where people have left you, and that is not something that you want to go through again, right? You have the fear that people will leave you and go. That is also something that plays into um, not moving into acceptance, right? If your ex is somebody who is giving you mixed signals, or they have been very inconsistent, right? Sometimes they say that everything is good, sometimes they say that no, I want to end this all, right? Sometimes they're very pleasant, sometimes they're very unpleasant. This is also something that might make it difficult to let them go. They are if there's someone who you've become very comfortable with, or their familiarity is something that you enjoy, right? This is also something that can hamper your growth here. And investment as well, right? You've invested so much time, so much energy, so much mental effort into this relationship, right? You do not want to let go of it. So this is something that often comes up when we ask somebody, why can't you just let the relationship go, right? Have you guys experienced any of this? Would you like to share? You can give me a thumbs up if you experience this, or you can also raise your hand and share an experience if you'd like.
Yes, ma'am. You feel that you've invested so much of a time,
Hmm.
energies, and one of the maybe crucial time of your life, uh,
Hmm.
if you're in late 20s.
Hmm.
So you miss out on lot other things, maybe your career sometimes, or maybe some
Hmm.
other things important for your
Hmm.
life. And so, and this comfort zone and familiarity always, yeah, it happens because now you know in and out about each other. So
Hmm.
that feeling of that ki somebody who is as close to you as you are to yourself.
Hmm.
So वो होता है. Ma'am, can you explain this mixed
Right.
signals and inconsistency? Yeah.
Right. So when we talk about mixed signals, right? So if you have made the decision to break up with your partner, right? But your partner keeps giving you these signs that things will change, or they suddenly start acting really nice to you, and then suddenly they get angry, or they suddenly insult you quite a lot, right? So you're not exactly sure how to take the next step, right? So you
Hmm.
can't fully let them go because that hope has been created in you, right? That things might change.
Right. Okay.
Okay. All right. Sneha and Dee, you had raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, currently I'm facing the fear of loneliness and
Hmm.
the mixed signals
Hmm.
and I'm also like that whether I'll be able to find new partner or not, or will I be able to adjust with him or not in the future. So
Hmm.
I'm facing these issues for now.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing. Dee, would you like to share as well?
I raised by mistake.
Okay. Okay. No problem. All right. So these are some of the things that make letting go difficult, right? Some of the other things are there is too much focus on the positive memories, right? So if you're trying to move on, but often you come across maybe a text from them, or you come across a picture about them, or just a random memory hits you, right? There is a lot of focus on the positive memories, which makes it difficult to just move on, right? Because you think about, oh, we've had such great times together, right? There is a lot of fantasizing that is happening, that oh, suddenly he will be my knight in shining armor, or suddenly she will be someone who just comes and sweeps me off my feet, right? There is a lot of fantasizing involved about the changes that you would like to see. There is constant stalking. So if you are someone who is constantly looking at their social media, trying to find out what they're up to, what is going on in their life, right, that is definitely going to make the moving on a lot more difficult because you have constant reminders of them. If the breakup was very abrupt, if it was very sudden, you didn't see it coming, and they didn't explain, give you a reason for why they were breaking up with you might want to wait for that closure, right? You might want to just understand why they did what they did. If there are actions during the relationship that have not been explained, you might just want to be waiting for that closure, right? If there were unmet emotional needs, right? If you wanted attention from them, if you wanted validation from them, and that is something that you never got from them, right? That you really want from them, you might still sort of try and hold on because that is still something that is unmet, right? That is still something you crave from them. And finally, either pedestalizing your ex or blaming them, right? If the whole situation is something that you think is entirely their fault, it might be difficult to let go because there is so much responsibility that is placed on them, right? So until and unless they may be atone for all of the wrong that they've done to you, you might not want to let go. Or if you think of your ex as the perfect person, that they were the greatest person ever and nothing comes above that, right? That is also something that we call pedestalizing, and it can make letting go very difficult. All right. So these are some of the things that we have discussed about how moving on or just accepting the end of the relationship can become difficult. Okay. So now let's come to the part where we talk about how we can start our first step towards moving on, or how we can start making acceptance easy for us. All right. Have you guys understood everything this far? Anything you want to revisit at this point before we move on to? the first step? Just give me a thumbs up if we can move on. All right. Okay, great. Okay, so the first step, all right, the no contact rule. This is something that you guys might have come across very often, right? So the previous slide, when we were talking about all of these obstacles, right, when letting go becomes difficult. So if you've noticed these previous signs in yourself, um, then this might be a step for you to take, right? So because I do understand for some people staying in contact just makes moving on harder, right? So um, if we talk about the no contact rule, what it means is cutting off all communication with your ex after a breakup, right? So it's like a digital detox from them. No texting, no calling, no checking their social media, no going accidentally to this place where you'll know they will definitely be there, just so that you might run into them. Yes, Mr. Go ahead.
So sorry for interrupting mid of this, but actually, what I have noticed and witnessed a lot of times
Mm,
that even when there
mm,
is no contact, like even when I am
mm,
making sure there is intentionally no contact, there are these series and
mm,
events which make us, end up in the same place. It can be in workplace
mm,
or colleges or any public places as that. And whenever there is no contact,
mm,
we feel okay, we've reached the stage of acceptance and everything has been done and
mm,
dusted. But the minute you
mm,
see that person, or they come to you, or you start see, even if they glare at you or whatever it may be, so these things
mm,
start coming back, all those negative flashbacks, also this very toxic imbalance of the good and the bad memories and all these things. So it
mm,
just feels like the cycle of grief which we have surpassed a long ago, and
mm,
it just feels like it
mm,
was for nothing. So how
mm.
can we also do that, please?
Right, right. So thank you for bringing this up. This is something that we are going to discuss as well, right? What to do
Ma'am,
if
I,
they are
I
somebody
just
who
add
is
on to
in,
it. Okay. Sorry.
sorry?
I'll just add on to ma'am to this thing that there are some places which were very common, like you're very regular used to go there. So जब
Right.
आप कभी breakup के बाद उस जगह पे जाते हो even after lot of years, तो वो
Hmm.
मेमोरी ट्रिगर जरूर करती है. और सपोज आपकी एक्स दूसरी सिटी में कहीं मूव हो गई है एंड बाय चांस
Hmm.
यू आर गोइंग दैट सिटी फॉर वर्क और समथिंग, तो दिमाग में
Hmm.
वो आता है कि शुड आई कांटेक्ट हर, शुड आई आस्क हर टू मीट, should I just
Right.
that, तो how to
Okay.
overcome all that thing मैम. और वो जो
Yes, yes.
क्रेविंग होती है मैम कि एक बार सोशल मीडिया देख लो, लिंक्डइन देख लो कि व्हाट शी इज
Hmm.
डूइंग नाउ, सो या.
Right, right. So we are going to be discussing this. What if there are common spaces that you can't avoid, right? Sometime or the other, you might come into a situation where you have to, come in contact with them, right? So I do understand when they are out of sight, out of mind, it feels like, oh, I am healing. And then when they come back and the waves of emotions come rushing back, it might feel that I have not made any progress at all, right? But that's not true, right? You have survived all of this time without them and you have been trying to heal yourself. So it's not like just because you went back to a previous stage that all of your progress is lost, right? Your progress is still there, right? In fact, if you notice, it might also seem that I've gone back to the previous stage, but you might also notice that I've been able to better handle myself even though those emotions came back rushing to me, right? So absolutely nothing. It does not discount the progress that you made. All right. It is difficult, but it is not something that completely washes away all the growth that you made. All right. So let's talk a bit about how to do no contact in the first place, right? So um, if we talk about no reopening wounds, right? Why is it necessary to go no contact, right? Even if the temptation is coming, right? So imagine you have an open wound on your arm, right? And continuously, when you get the reminders of your ex, you are going and rubbing that open wound across something very abrasive, right? Something that is very rash, right? So that would only reopen your wound over and over again and not give you that chance to heal. right? So whenever you do pull up an old picture of them, or whenever you do come across reminders of them, right, um, it would reopen your wound and not give you a chance to heal, right? So this is the whole sort of rationale behind why no contact is important in the first place, right? Secondly, it is important to remind ourselves that this is not a test, right? um, it is not to see, if I don't contact them, are they going to contact me first, right? It is not to see who breaks first, right? Who is less who isn't as good at self control, right? This is not a test. The purpose of the no contact rule is, it's a time for you to have that personal growth. It is time for your healing, and it is time for you to gain that clarity, right? So here you need to make sure that when you're going no contact, it is motivated by a sincere desire, right, to for self discovery, to understand yourself better, and also your emotional well-being. All right. I have a question in the chat box, I think. Um, Repeat no opening rule. Oh, okay. All right. So as I was saying, so imagine you have an open wound, okay? It's a fresh wound, and you continuously keep going back to the thing that hurt you in the first place, right? So imagine there is a sandpaper on your walls, right? And every time you brush past that, your wound is going to reopen, right? So any reminders of your relationship, any contact with your ex is like going and rubbing yourself on that sandpaper while your wound is still open, right? So this is sort of the analogy behind it, right? That you give yourself that time to heal before you can come back in close proximity. All right. So this is what the purpose of no contact rule is. Okay. Next, it also allows you to ride that wave of withdrawal, right? So, like we've previously spoken, right? Often your brain will behave very similarly as compared to someone who has been addicted to a substance, right? When you come out of a relationship. So, you will face those withdrawal symptoms as well. Um, so, when we talk about withdrawal, what exactly is withdrawal, right? So, if we talk about those nagging feelings that you get in your gut, right? That I want to contact them. Or you might, um, hello, is my screen still visible? Could you give me a thumbs up if yes? Okay, all right, thank you. Right. So when we talk about withdrawal, right? So somebody who has been addicted to a substance, right? For example, alcohol or maybe drugs like cocaine, right? So when they stop taking that substance, they will experience that withdrawal, right? So even when you go no contact with somebody you've been so intimate with, so close with, right? You will face that withdrawal, right? So you might get that nagging feeling in your gut, right? You might have those sleepless nights where you're tossing and turning. You might have that constant urge to just text them, right? So all of these are signs that your brain is basically adjusting to life without them, right? So while these signs are very, very uncomfortable to deal with, do understand that it is an important part of your recovery, that you go through it, right? If you respond to these withdrawals and give in to the contact, it basically does not allow your brain to move on, right? When you're getting these feelings. So we need to ride that wave of the withdrawal. All right. Another advantage of doing no contact is basically it provides distance and clarity for both, right? So it forces you to endure these withdrawal symptoms without the immediate relief, right? So when you reach out to them, when you communicate to them, you get that relief, right? All of those discomfort that you were feeling, all those uncomfortable symptoms that you were facing, you get relief from that, right? If you're checking their Instagram, you get that relief of knowing what they're up to. So if we don't allow ourselves to fully experience these feelings by dulling out that discomfort, by reaching out to them, you're giving you're not giving yourself the chance to heal, like I mentioned earlier. But when you adhere to the no contact, you give your nervous system basically that chance to face those waves of panic that you're feeling, the anxiety that you're feeling, and learn that, even though it is difficult, they will pass, right? Like a wave, in the beginning, it goes really high, but then it subsides as well, right? So letting your body understand that it will subside, right? So when we talk about distance, in a relationship, you're deeply involved with that person, right? It's very easy to form attachments that blur your judgment then, right? So it might become very tough for you to see if the relationship was actually right for you, or was this something that was just familiar for you, right? So when you go no contact, it gives you the space to just step back, right? Reassess whether you were genuinely happy, or were you just comfortable and stuck in that relationship, right? So this is what the distance does, right? When we talk about clarity, um, it gives also your ex the same clarity, right? If you are somebody who cares about them and how they deal with the breakup a lot, right? um, Consider that you might be giving them mixed feelings by reaching out to them, right? So it might be affecting their healing as well. So when you hold on, you keep both of you trapped in that uncertainty, right? So cutting off communication isn't just a gift to yourself at this point. It is a way where you're allowing both of you to move forward and start healing, right? So creating that clear break is a kind of necessary step, and also it is a kind step for you, both of you. Okay. Now the question that a lot of you had, right? How do you resist that temptation to reach out to them, right? How do you just deal with wanting to reach out to them? So some of the things that we can do in this situation, right, is immersing yourself in new experiences, right? Right now, your ex is no longer in your life, and there is this void that has been created because of their absence, right? So, filling this void with new experiences basically gives our brains that serotonin and dopamine hit that we would want, right? Basically, the happiness feelings that we are looking for. So, coming up with new experiences that you want to try is something that you can do here, right? Whenever you get that urge, try out something new instead. When it comes to social media, right? Blocking them, or if blocking feels like a very, very huge step to take, maybe you can start by muting them, right? So, this is something that you can do when it comes to social media, because social media is like a landmine, right? You go in there, you will stumble across something that they have posted or something that they are doing, especially if you have mutual friends, right? So, if you want to take that space, you can also mute the mutual friends at that point, right? Next, having a support system, right? So whenever you're feeling the urge to text them, reach out to a friend instead, right? Focus on processing your emotions, right? You might have the urge to return to your ex for comfort because that is what you've done all this time, but try turning to your friendships instead, right? Um, and instead of focusing on all of the things about the breakup and about your ex, try to focus on what you are feeling at the moment. What are the experiences you are having in that moment, right? Just making your friendships a safe haven for you to go to, right? Um, if you are someone who gets a lot of reminders of them where you're, sort of romanticizing the past with them, right? Keep a list next to you, right? Keep it on your notes app if you're somebody who always has their phone on hand. If you prefer physical reminders, you can note it down in a notepad and keep, right? Keep a list of the reasons why you broke up in the first place, right? So whenever your brain brings up these reminders of how great they were and how good all of your times were, try to balance that out with a more rational outlook of what made you break up, right? So in that moment, your brain is able to make a more balanced decision. Okay. And okay, finally, this is also something that some of you came up with, right? Sometimes the no contact rule is not a solution for everyone, right? For some, it is just not feasible to do it, right? So, for example, if you are co parenting, right? If you are somebody who has been through a separation recently and you have a kid together and you're co-parenting them, you will need to communicate about your kids. And if you avoid your ex, it could lead to very awkward sort of situations, or even disrupt your schedules, right? So if you have mutual friends, avoiding meeting them might be impossible, right? So in these cases, what you do is, it is very very crucial to establish very clear boundaries, right? So you limit communication to only what is necessary, right? If you have to communicate when to pick up the kids, when to drop the kids, or if you have to communicate within your friend group about something that is very important, you keep your communication limited to that only, right? So the whole goal over here is to minimize contact, right? If they are reaching out to you, establish a boundary there that, I am trying to go no contact, so I would appreciate if you do not reach out to me unless absolutely urgent and necessary, right? um, the goal here is to minimize contact much as possible and keep your conversations brief if they have to happen, right? Avoid any emotional entanglements, right? So if you're noticing that the conversation is getting a bit emotional, remove yourself from that situation, right? So it is basically about creating distance, but also not forgetting some of the practicalities of your life, right? Of your situation. Not everybody can fully just disconnect after a breakup, right? So this is something that you can do in those moments where you absolutely cannot avoid them. All right. Understood. Any questions this far? Can we move on? Give me a thumbs up if yes, or you can raise your hand. All right. In the chat box, one of you has said no contact is very difficult. Yes, it absolutely is, right? Because it's not just an emotional connect you made to them. Even your body has gotten used to just having them around you, right? So it is going to be difficult, but I can tell you that it is possible, with this sort of backup kit that we create for ourselves. All right. Okay, so let us move on, right? So this is just a quote, right? The only way out is through, right? So the only way to go through this is to go through it, right? You cannot work your way around it. So you have to go through these emotions that come up. And these emotions can be very difficult. They can be very uncomfortable, right? So it is very understandable if you don't want to face them by just ignoring and suppressing it, right? But when we ignore these emotions, when we suppress them, they come up in very different and unhealthy ways, right? And they don't allow us to move on, right? So understanding here that we have to go through these emotions to actually process and move on. All right. Okay, now let us come to the coping part of it, which is something that a lot of you have been waiting for, right? So let's talk about coping.
Hey everyone! Just like those moments on YouTube when a quick ad pops up, we have a short ad break for you. Don't worry, this will be quick and super beneficial for you. Stay tuned. Alright, let's dive in. So, what exactly is one on one counseling? It's a personalized, confidential chat between you and a trained therapist. Imagine having someone who really listens, understands you, and helps you figure things out. The benefits: personal growth, solving problems, setting goals, and boosting your mental well being. It's like having a personal coach for your mind. Now, let's bust a big myth. Many think counseling is only for those who are unwell. Nope, that's not true. Counseling is for anyone wanting to be their best self. Want better relationships, more friends, a spot in your dream college or job? Counseling can help you with all that. It's about making the best version of you. So, why MindTribe? First off, our counselors are super talented. Plus, we're super affordable with sessions ranging from just rupees 500 to 5,000. And guess what? Your first session is absolutely free. Once you're comfortable, you can choose from our affordable packages. Empowering minds, transforming
Okay, so empowering minds, transforming lives is what we do at MindTribe. And before we jump back into our main presentations, you can let me know if you have any urgent questions about counseling. I will be sharing contact information in the group as well, so you can reach out to me anytime. But right now, if you have any questions, please shoot and I'll help you out. You can raise your hand and let me know. Okay, if you want to move ahead with the presentation, you can give me a thumbs up as well. All right, great. So let's talk about coping. So I want to hear from you guys. You can type in the chat box or you can unmute and talk as well. Have you been coping in a way that you think is unhealthy or this is not something that is very helpful for you? I would love to hear from you guys. Gaming for a long time. All right. Mm-hmm. Downplaying yourself. All right. High functioning depression patterns, addiction, emotional eating. Okay. Sleeping too much. Hmm. Right. It is difficult to understand what is unhealthy and unhealthy sometimes. Self harm, oversleeping, right? Not eating, insomnia. Okay. Crying all the time. Okay. All right. Um, Thank you for sharing all of that. Okay. So, some of the common unhelpful coping mechanisms when we talk about, right, um, is a lot of struggles that we noted in the beginning, right, when we just started our workshop, right, they can actually be coping mechanisms, right, but they are not the healthiest way to cope because they affect multiple spheres of our life, right? So, some of the unhelpful coping mechanisms we can talk about here is alcohol or drug use, right? Overeating, some of you have mentioned as well. Procrastination, right? Whether it comes to work, whether it comes to talking to people, just doing things that you need to do, right? Sleeping too much, sleeping too little, withdrawal, right, from social interactions, right? Just keeping to yourself, just isolating yourself, right? Self harm, aggression as well, right? So, all of these can be very unhelpful, right? So, how do we understand if they are unhelpful, right? So we need to understand here that in the short term, they might give you that relief, they might give you that comfort when you are using them, right? There is a reason that you sort of resort to these mechanisms because they help you in that moment, right? They do give you that relief in that moment. And that is why you're using them. So it is important to understand here that we don't need to shame ourselves for using these, right? We're using it because they are coming in handy for us, but we also need to recognize that in the long run, these are turning out to be unhelpful for us, right? So that is a sign to understand about how these coping mechanisms are working for us, right? So in the long term, if they are not proving to be very beneficial, it might be a sign that this is an unhealthy coping mechanism. All right. So now let's talk about some healthy coping mechanisms, right? So we've already discussed the no contact example in detail. Now let's discuss a few more. Okay. Um, all right. So first coping strategy that we will be discussing in depth is rebuilding your self identity. All right. So after you have spent so long in your relationship and such an intimate relationship with somebody else, right? Um, Finding a me apart from that us can be very difficult, right? So how do we do that in the first place? So, firstly, we need to start returning to a routine, right? So, when we go through a breakup, often our routine gets very disrupted, right? The things that we used to do on a day to day basis might get disrupted. You might not want to go back to college. You might not want to start working again, or you might not do some of the things that you did after waking up every morning, right? So this whole routine gets disrupted, right? So returning to that routine, finding the things that you used to do in the start and trying to restart those things, right? So putting order to that chaos, right, is something that is important over here. And when we talk about routine, right, sometimes it might be tempting to start dating immediately because you want that stability back in your life, right? This is very, very tempting, but it is important to understand that dating immediately can be very harmful because you're not taking that space to process your breakup, right? So, this is something that we can do. So that is about reconnecting with the old, right? When we talk about engaging in the new, right? So was there a part of yourself that you really like, but when you were in the relationship, maybe you held back, right? Something that used to not do, or something that you didn't feel comfortable doing around them, right? Something that you had to sort of put away because they didn't like it, maybe something that even maybe you forgot that you enjoyed, right? So trying to find this out and trying to engage in that, right? So this could become like a symbol of, you know, sort of freedom from that relationship, exploring new possibilities as well, right? When we talk about reflection and discovery, right? Something as exciting as a solo trip as well, right? It could be a very small trip, just a day trip to a different city, or if you want a longer journey as well to a place you've never been, right? Using this time to reflect, to heal, and to just embrace the freedom that comes with moving on, right? And this is, of course, just an example. It doesn't have to be as drastic as a trip. It could be very, very small. So just trying a new cafe or trying a new dish that you've been wanting to try, right? You could start in small steps and then slowly build on that, right? Another way of reflection and discovery is journaling, right? What are the things that I have learned from this relationship, right? Um, what are the things that you've realized I definitely don't want in a relationship, right? Was this something that this relationship was doing that I don't want? Was there something in this relationship that I really enjoyed that I would love to have in my future relationships, right? So just journaling what you've learned, right? Noting down your emotions, right? What are the emotions that I feel when I think about this relationship? What are the emotions that I'm going through now, right? So venting out, right? A lot of you were also asking about how to let go of that anger in that first place, right? So if you like, you can talk to somebody, right? You can sort of just vent all of those feelings out. Journaling is definitely one way in which you can do it as well, right? um, you can also try and discover what are some of the values that you've discovered, right? What are the priorities that you've learned about yourself when you were in this relationship? Okay, so these all become parts of rebuilding your self identity. Okay, so let us now move on to forgiveness and self compassion, right? So, when we talk about this, right, often there is a lot of resentment towards your ex, right? So feeling anger or feeling blame towards themselves is very natural, right? But sometimes it becomes really heavy for us to carry along, especially if you're doing it for a very long time, right? So let's actually do this together, okay? And of course, this is only if you're feeling ready to forgive them at this moment. I'd want to try something together, okay? So if you're feeling that there is this resentment that you're sort of holding towards them and you want to move towards forgiveness, you can give me a thumbs up if you would like to try this along today in this workshop. Okay. All right, great. All right. So the rest of you, you do not have to force yourself if you're not comfortable doing this yet. Okay, you can just listen and you can make a note of it. And whenever you're feeling more ready for the forgiveness to come along, then you can do it. All right. So right now, I'm hoping that you're sitting in a quiet, comfortable space where you're not going to be disturbed. Okay, so let's start. All right. So I want you to close your eyes and take a few breaths. Okay, breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Just allow your body to relax. Focus on your breath until you feel calm and centered. Okay. And now visualize the person. Just picture them, the person that you want to forgive, and I just want you to imagine them, right? See them standing at a short distance away from you. Okay, so they're standing a bit away from you, and now I want you to just imagine telling this person how they hurt you and how what their actions mm, made you feel, right? How what they did made you feel. I want you to be honest and clear in this visualization, right? Allow yourself to fully express your emotions, whether it's anger or sadness or even disappointment. Okay, so just take a few seconds, try to express what you are feeling to them. If you find yourself that the other person is trying to say something to you, try to see the situation from the other person's perspective, right? Consider what may have motivated their actions, and you don't have to excuse their behavior, right? This is just to see from their perspective, not to excuse the hurt that they have caused you. Here, just taking a moment to acknowledge that everybody does have their flaws and that their actions may have come from their own pain or even ignorance for that matter, right? So once you've had a moment to understand their perspective, try, and if you're feeling ready for this, of course, right? Imagine yourself saying the words to them, right? Saying, I forgive you, right? You can do this mentally. If you like, you can say it out loud as well. Okay. Just visualize releasing all that emotional weight that you've been carrying along with you. Just imagine that weight falling off of you as you forgive them. And once you've done that, I want you to picture the person slowly fading away or just walking away. And as they walk away, visualize them taking with them the negativity that was associated with this situation. Just imagine yourself feeling lighter and freer as they disappear. Just visualize yourself surrounded by light or warmth, right? Symbolizing that healing and that peace. And allow yourself to fully embrace this new state of being free, um, free from the burden of that past. All right. Whenever you're feeling ready, you can open your eyes. Okay. So, this is one way in which you can help yourself let go of that resentment towards your ex. If you're not feeling comfortable with the visualization, you can also do it with a letter that is addressed to them, right? You don't have to send it to them. Once you've addressed it to them, once you've written it down, you can just tear it or burn it or throw it away, right? This is just to let go of any of the remaining feelings that might be there. Okay. So next, when we talk about offering yourself kindness, right? It is also very common to blame yourself sometimes, right? Saying that I'm not good enough. And if I were better, this relationship wouldn't have ended, right? So I want you to notice here, uh, just catch yourself having these thoughts about yourself, right? So ask yourself, would I say this to a friend? So if a friend of mine was coming in with the same situation, would I tell them that it is your fault or you should have been better and you're not good enough, right? So just holding yourself in that moment and um, treating yourself with the same kindness, the same understanding that you would offer to a friend, right? And countering them with positive affirmations or self compassionate responses, right? So, what would you say to a friend in that moment, right? That I understand that it is difficult, but I am here for you and you will get through this, right? Just doing things like that. Okay, so this is one way in which you can offer yourself kindness. And lastly, allowing yourself permission to just grieve and grow, right? Grief is a process that takes quite a while sometimes. Rush yourself through the grief, right? Allow yourself to grow, but also understand that while you're growing, the grief might happen at the same time as well, right? It does not discount your progress. All right. So relationship also was not something that happened overnight. The bond is not something that you formed with them overnight, right? So dealing with that pain is also something that is going to take time, right? And expecting that pain to disappear overnight is a bit unrealistic over there. All right. So this is about forgiveness and self-compassion. Next, we talk about closure rituals. Okay. So this is the last technique that we're going to. Yes, Neha, go ahead.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am, it has been a beautiful presentation. Hello.
Thank you. Hello. Yes, Neha, go ahead.
Ma'am, I would like to ask something related to forgiveness. Like
Right.
for myself, I have forgiven whosoever the people were, like many
Hmm.
times. But
Hmm.
after certain intervals, what
Hmm.
happened is that I start suddenly feeling a rush of anger again for those
Hmm.
people. So
Hmm.
does that mean that I have not truly forgiven them? Because like if I meet them in person or I have an encounter, then I am
Hmm.
absolutely okay. I don't feel that resentment. But I don't know
Hmm.
why does that keep happening again and
Hmm.
again.
Hmm.
So how should
Right.
I comprehend it? Like have I forgiven those people or not? Because I really get
Hmm.
confused many times about this thing.
Right. Right. So, Neha, when we talk about forgiveness, right, it is not to say that we are completely excusing what they did to you, right? So, if they did behave in an unfair manner to you, it makes sense that you won't forget it, right? That there was an injustice that was done to you that might remain, right? So whenever you do feel, when you're around them, if you don't feel resentment towards them, then it is definitely a good sign, right? But if you do feel that those feelings of anger do come up, you can always redo this exercise that we just did when it comes to forgiveness, right? So, whatever emotions are coming up in that moment, asking yourself, what is it that I'm feeling right now? What do I need to hear at this moment, right? And offering yourself that compassion in that moment so that you can deal with it in that time. Okay. So, even the forgiveness, it's not like it's a one time activity, right? Once you do it, maybe it will go fully, right? Sometimes it might take multiple tries. For some people, it might happen in one session itself, right? So you can also repeat
Okay,
it.
ma'am.
It's not necessary
But
to
ma'am,
do it.
how do I figure out for myself that yes, I have completely forgiven them? Because like I'm over and above the blame game now. It doesn't
Hmm.
mean anything to me, like who was wrong or who was right. So how do
Hmm.
I comprehend it for myself that yes, I have forgiven them? Like I'm not trying to generalize it because
Hmm.
all of us have a different journey. All of us must be having different circumstances. But like like how should I decide like that this is the time yes I have forgiven, so I should not be burdening myself over and over again with the same thing.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Can I ask what makes it so important for you to know that you have forgiven them?
Yes, ma'am, because I've been reading a lot of scriptures recently,
Hmm.
especially
Hmm.
Bhagavad Gita, and
Hmm.
it specifically mentions that it is very important for us to forgive. That's
Hmm.
why.
Hmm. Okay,
So,
all right.
and also it also says, like, I won't be quoting the phrases, but it also says that if you haven't forgiven completely, then you're still connected to that person. That's why it
Hmm.
is very important for me.
Hmm. Okay. All right. So, do you still somewhere feel that you are connected to that person through this
No,
anger
that's
that you
what
feel towards them?
no, no, not at all. But I don't know,
Okay.
like, whether it's triggered or untriggered, I don't know. But sometimes
Hmm.
that still happens. It's not like that. It's like sort of recollection, but it is not
Hmm.
triggered. Like I have been, if I'm reading something or if I'm seeing something, it's not like that.
Hmm.
It's just
Hmm.
out of the blue, like out of nowhere, it pops up.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Okay. So I think another thing to look at over here is that you don't have to force yourself to give that forgiveness, right? If
Okay.
your mind does need a bit more time to deal with it, right? You can allow yourself that, right? You don't have to rush towards that. In fact, you've also mentioned that now that when you're around them, you don't feel that resentment all the time, right? It's just once in a while that it does come up, right? So even recognizing that you have made progress in that way, right? That is also important to notice when we talk about forgiveness, right? Um, it
Okay.
might not be fully gone, right? But over time, you are making progress over there. So trying to focus on that, right? That it might take time, but it is happening. All right.
Okay, so forgiveness cannot be absolute.
I do not think that I have the liberty to comment on that, right? It could be different for different people, but I can say that it could
Yes.
be different times for
Okay.
everybody, right?
Okay. Thank you for answering. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you for your question, Neha. All right. So let's talk about closure rituals. Okay. So first, we talk about cleansing physical spaces, right? So basically, what this says is remove or rearrange any physical reminders of them, right? So just go through your space, remove items that remind you of your ex, right? So gifts, photos, any notes that you've kept, right? So you can donate these items, you can just store them in a way in a box that you don't see, or you can just discard them. So just making like a symbolic act of moving on by getting rid of these items. You can also reorganize your space, so you can refresh the environment that you live in. You can rearrange your furniture, you can add in new decor, or you can create a new sort of corner for yourself for self-care, right? So this could help represent sort of a fresh start and reclaiming that space as your own, right? Especially if your ex has been there, you have memories of them there, so just reclaiming that space as something for yourself. All right. Then the goodbye letter. So very similar to the thing that we've spoken about before. So write a letter to your ex, expressing all your thoughts, all your feelings, even things that you have left unsaid, right? So this can help you articulate your emotions and find that closure, right? After writing that letter, you can either choose to keep it as a symbol of your journey, or you can also destroy it by tearing it up, burning it to just signify letting go. All right. Is this understood this far? Just give me a thumbs up if yes. All right. Great. Next, when we talk about symbolic acts, right? So just engaging in symbolic acts that represent letting go of the relationship, right? So you could write down your feelings or memories on a piece of paper, and then you can just release it into the wind. You can bury it, right, into the ground, or you can place it into the water and just watch it flow along, just to symbolize letting go, right? If you have something that reminds you of your ex, right, replace that with something new, right? So for example, if you used to wear a piece of jewelry that you got from your ex, replace it with something new that you choose for yourself, right? So just representing that new beginning. All right. So these are the techniques that we have discussed in detail. These are some other common examples that you might have heard from a lot of sources, right? So let's just go through them briefly. And these are some examples of sort of more healthier paths that you can take towards your recovery after a breakup, right? So exercise, so physical activity boosts your mood, it reduces stress, it helps you cope with that emotional pain, right? Just talking about the problem, expressing your feelings, it can just give you that relief and help you process the breakup, instead of bottling or escaping from it. And if expressing it verbally to somebody is difficult, of course you can write it down as well, right? Healthy eating, right? So just trying to make that effort for proper nutrition, right? Even if you don't have the appetite, maybe asking somebody to motivate you in that aspect, or keeping reminders for yourself to eat your meals, right? Because proper nutrition, it supports your mental as well as your physical well-being during this emotional recovery. Okay. Of course, seeking professional help. A therapist can offer that guidance and give you those strategies that are specially customized to the experience that you are specifically going through, right? When you Google, you might not always get things that are very specific to your situation, right? So, professional help can help you in that aspect. Relaxation exercises as well. So, deep breathing or meditation, it can help calm that mind. And if you're feeling that anxiety, it would also reduce that, right? Using social support. So, just leaning on your friends, your family, it provides you with that comfort and that understanding and just, reassurance in that moment. And of course, self-care practices. So you can find out what are the things that you really like or something that brings you that comfort, right? So you can just create that box, that self-care sort of box for yourself, a box of comfort that you can return to, right? If it's warmth that you're craving, then you can keep a nice blanket in there that provides you with that physical warmth, right? If you like to treat yourself some chocolates or something that you really enjoy, if you like to do art, if you like creativity, just including those things in that self care box of yours. All right. So these are some common examples. Any others that some of you have noticed that are really healthy for you and you would like to share with us today? You can raise your hand, you can put in the chat box as well. Yes, no?
One thing you rightly said about journaling, that
Hmm.
what have you learned from this relationship? Because
Hmm.
sometimes happen we, as you said, you get out of one and you enter the another one, and then
Hmm.
same pattern repeats. So it is
Hmm.
very important to get back, think, analyze, reflect,
Hmm.
and see what you have learned, what could have been right, and I mean just a reflection would help
Right,
in future.
right. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Kapil. Some of you in the comments also have said journaling, talking about it, poetry, right? Um, yes, Nishta, go ahead. All right. Okay. So this is going to be towards the end of our workshop today. All right. I would like to end with this, right? You can take a screenshot of this, keep it as your wallpaper if you like, to just have that reminder for yourself, right? That it may be difficult, but I am capable, right? This is something that you can say to yourself as well. Okay. And as we end today, I would like to tell you that I want to thank you for your active participation in this workshop today. And as a token of our appreciation, we would like to offer the first three individuals that reach out to us with a free consultation. So you'd have a free session with us, and you can always, we'll be dropping the details in the group as well, and you can always reach out to us on the group. All right. If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask. And yes, if you don't, do feel free to drop off as well. Thank you for joining us today. Yes, Neha.
Ma'am, I don't know how much my question is related or not, But
Hmm.
recently, I have been listening to various podcasts where
Hmm.
experts on law of attraction have spoken about the high probability for a person who's being
Hmm.
involved in toxic relationships, one
Hmm.
after the other, because
Hmm.
according to them, this is their attraction. So,
Hmm.
how much do you agree with this? Because if that's true, then there is an absolutely no way out from this situation for people like them. And how does
Hmm.
theories of psychology explains this?
Hmm. Okay, all right. So I would like to focus on the word that you have used itself, right? There is a high probability that this pattern would repeat,
Yes.
right? So probability does not mean certainty, right? Just because it is a pattern, it does not have to be a sure event every time, right? So I do understand that maybe your attachment styles growing up or the experiences that you've had in your past very strongly influence the relationships that you choose for yourself, right? So while it is an influence, it does not have to be a deciding factor, right? So if you do notice these tendencies in yourself, these are definitely workable, right? It's not to say that these are permanent things that you cannot change at all, right? So if you do identify these patterns in yourself, it is already a great sign because you're having that insight, right? That this is something that I'm doing and this is not something that is very healthy for me, right? So insight is the first step, and then definitely we can work on it in depth as well. All right.
Okay. Okay.
Does
Thank you,
that
ma'am.
answer your question?
Yeah, like to some extent, because like they were trying to convince that, it's not wrong with the people who are at fault, but it's your fault that you are attracting a certain sort of negativity. But why would a person intentionally choose
Hmm.
people who are going to harm them eventually? So I was
Hmm.
not able to correlate with them. I don't know, like they
Hmm.
have been I have been listening to such kind of theories for law of attraction
Hmm.
from many people, like not just one but many people, and they are even conducting workshops explaining this.
Hmm.
But I really don't agree with that, because like mind and body behavior is not specific for everyone. I
Hmm.
think it varies, it depends upon the background.
Hmm.
Like why would someone, like they actually gave an example of some person who
Hmm.
had been a toxic marriage, and it has happened to that person 3 times.
Hmm.
So they were explaining that their customer, that it is not the other people's fault, it is your fault, you have to change your
Hmm.
attraction. So I
Hmm.
was not able to understand that how can
Right.
someone change their attraction, because like you can't predict who is going to be toxic or not.
Hmm. Right, right, right. So completely understand, right? Nobody would want to personally, specifically try and go and hurt themselves, right? It is a
Yes,
habit that
because
has happened.
uh, because they were also like saying like, okay, like I don't know if it's the right place to say or not. Like we have been recently seeing like so many rape cases happening to women these days. So this doesn't mean that women are attracting these things, right? So you can't
Hmm.
uh, collect everything and put it in a certain box. So like I
Right,
don't
right.
know how because I have been started reading psychology, but I was not able to relate with what they have said.
Hmm.
So
Right.
I just wanted to understand this from someone who has already accomplished something in psychology.
Hmm. Right. I think this is, like you very rightly mentioned, right? Just another way to sort of deflect that responsibility, right? Placing the blame on the one who gets attracted to the positive qualities that they show in the start, and
Yes,
then
yes.
saying that, oh, it's your fault if you didn't
For
recognize it, and not placing the
exactly,
blame to the
exactly.
person who deceived you in the first place, right?
Yes, yes. Thank you,
Right.
ma'am.
Thank you for asking your question, Neha. Yes, Nishta, go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. I wanted to ask, do you believe whenever we engage with any romantic partner for that matter, even if we are connected on an emotional, mental, or physical scale, that there is
Hmm.
definitely and transfer of energy. Because what I have noticed is, I've noticed such patterns not just with me but with a few other individuals, where it's not about just taking on their habits, but even when I am not the person in a mess or feeling battered down, but somewhere or the other I do feel that a person's energy definitely affects mine, when I guess we
Hmm.
have been with them for long, be it the physical contact or emotional contact. So that
Hmm.
is there a definite energy exchange? That is what I wanted to know.
Right, right. Okay. So, very similar theme. I think Neha's question of the law of attraction as well, right? And your question about the energies as well. There is sort of a spiritual aspect coming into this, right? And I think one of the major things to notice over here, that even if people do sort of make, so this, I'm just going back to Neha's question, I'm sorry. People do make claims about these things, right? When it comes to psychology, it is very important to keep your facts research based, right? Evidence based, and make a decision based on that. When it comes to the energy part of it, I do understand what you're saying. However, I'm not in a position to make comments about the spiritual side of it as much, but I can tell you about the things that have been found in psychological research, right? So it's been noticed that couples who spend time together and couples who have been together for a while, right? They even try to copy each other's mannerisms, right? Because when you are with that person, even the way of talking, even you might have noticed that people start looking similar after a time. And that is because we start copying their facial expressions and the way of expressing, right? So I do understand the energy uh, perspective that you bring in as well, right? And of course, if you have had this subjective experience, then of course, right, it is something that you have experienced and nobody can take that away from you. So yeah, it can be very, very possible that when you do spend time around each other, then energy exchange also could happen, right?
Got it, ma'am. Thanks a ton for your insights.
Thank you, Mishta, for asking. I hope I was able to answer your question.
Definitely, ma'am, because not just the spiritual aspect, but these days it's definitely important to understand the psychological aspects too, in order to keep the self also sane. So yes,
Hmm.
it is helpful. So thank you so much. Actually, the entire workshop was amazing. A friend of mine recommended it, so it has been fantastic. So thank you a lot.
Thank you, Nishta, for your kind words, and thank you for joining in. And all of you, thank you for joining in today and making this workshop so fruitful and interactive. I hope to see you soon again. Okay? Can feel free to drop off. Thank you.
Thank you, Lina.